The Edmonton Oilers put on an amazing performance. The Toronto Maple Leafs wish. And we try to fix the Toronto Blue Jays. That and a whole lot more as Couch Potato Diary starts right now. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Couch Potato Diary. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today as the Saskatchewan Chronicles continue here, broadcasting live. Well, not live, but, recorded from my parents' office here in Assiniboia, Saskatchewan. So that is why the different perspective that we're coming at you with today. Coming up on this show, we are going to be looking at a tale of two cities in the Stanley Cup playoffs as the Leafs and Oilers are on completely opposite ends of the spectrum in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and a little bit of baseball talk coming up on this one as well today. So let's dive right in. But before we do that, got to remind you that we are presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for that great Calgary swag. We got some new stuff coming out very, very soon, so make sure you check that out. And as always, for your energy needs, head over to swiftenergy.gg and use the code PKPrimetime for that 25% off. So, the Toronto Maple Leafs are the Rob Schneider meme. Oh, we suck again. Let's talk about it. Look, I have tried over and over again to give this Toronto Maple Leafs team the benefit of the doubt. I push back always on, you know what, just too much talent. You signed too many good players and you need to spread that wealth out. I hate that could be a way that we talk about team building. And so because of that, I have given this team the benefit of the doubt time after time after time. Even I can't at this point. How do you come out with such an embarrassing performance, such a lifeless performance in that type of a situation? Abysmal, pathetic showing from the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are now on the brink of elimination and honestly should just be bounced from the playoffs for how poorly they played. A horrendous performance from the Toronto Maple Leafs. And like I said, I have given them the benefit of the doubt so many times. I don't know how you can. At this point, you just sound insane. If you're, no, you know what, it's just one game. Because it's not. And maybe it is unfair to hold 2013 against these guys, but this era, the Core 4 era, there is at least one game like this every playoff, and sometimes it's just a full series like this. And to come out where you have a chance to put all of that behind you, people are not saying Stanley Cup or bust behind this team. Just look like a good hockey team in the playoffs. That's all people want. And to still not even reach that bar is shocking. Again, you have a chance to put all this behind you. If they go out and take a 3-2 lead against the Florida Panthers, if they eventually lose this series, people will have jokes. But if you take a 3-2 lead against the Panthers and then, heaven forbid, actually beat them, I think a trip to the Eastern Conference Finals really quiets a lot of that noise down around this team. Instead, they put up that. And so because of that, every question is going to be there and all of it is going to be valid. Horrendous, embarrassing, pathetic showing from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Again, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how, that is them and the Jets. That is about as worse or as bad as any team has looked so far in this postseason to play that type of a thing. And so I don't get it. I don't get it. It's a lot of different coaches. It is a lot of different pieces here and there. It is the main guys at the top. And you don't want to put this all on them because basically the whole team sucked in that game. But still, these are the guys who are still around from a lot of this. And so for it to look so familiar, I don't know what, at this point, I don't know what the defense is. Oh, no, trust me, it'll be fine. We've seen this before. They'll bounce back from this sort of a thing. Because they don't. They look like this all the time. And it's these guys. How can they be so bad when you have this much talent? Well, they figure out a way. And they did again. The Panthers, I don't even think the Panthers played that great. They just dummied them. Absolutely embarrassing. Now, I will say, in terms of the coaching aspect of this, I do think Berube made an excellent point and made a very strong point of not blaming just the core four, because I do think that is where things have happened in the past. I do think under Babcock and Keefe that this would have been a time where, and look, everyone's going to be talking about it anyway, but for Berube to not come out and blame those guys. I do think, like I said, that the previous regimes would have said, yeah, you know what? Need our best guys to be our best guys. That's all we need. And look, you probably do. If we're being honest, that is where it starts. But at least the coach isn't throwing those guys under the bus because they don't really respond to that. But I mean, they don't really respond to anything when you look at this. Like, this is, I kind of figured, regardless of how this series went, that Tavares and Marner would just be around as this whole thing went on, as their free agency starts now at the end of the end of the series, and they're free to go wherever they want July 1st. I kind of figured that we'll have some drama around it, but ultimately those guys will stay. I don't know now. And I think that's from a Toronto standpoint. And again, it's not to blame Marner, it's certainly not to blame Tavares or anything like that, but how can you keep running this back? How can you keep doing this thing and thinking you can be successful when nights like last night are even possible? So this is a loss that is so bad that it could genuinely change the direction of where this franchise goes moving forward. I don't think they're going to do a full teardown, but I am now at the point where I would assume Marner isn't going to be around. And before I thought that might have been a Marner decision. Now it might be mutual, just to try to change something up with that team. So, holy smokes, just an otherworldly pathetic showing from the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 5 against the Florida Panthers. On the opposite end of that spectrum, the Edmonton Oilers, who put on quite the show in closing things out against the Vegas Golden Knights. Let's keep the hockey conversation going with that one. The Edmonton Oilers put on the performance that the Toronto Maple Leafs wished they would have, as the Oilers are now off to the Western Conference Final. I was going to say second round. That's not it. They're off to the Western Conference Final, the NHL's Final Four, after a fantastic performance. And that is winning hockey. And I will, again, we talked about this the other day. I was hard on the Oilers. I have been hard on the Oilers. I did a video about how the Oilers were ruining Connor McDavid. So this is certainly not coming from Oilers fandom or anything like that. But you got to call it like you see it. And that was every cliche you want to put in, whether you want to talk about winning hockey or playoff style hockey or whatever it is. When it came down to winning time, the Edmonton Oilers did exactly what they needed to do. And kudos to them for being able to do that. And look, when you put out that top six as your defensive unit, you're not going to be winning the overall battle a whole lot on the NHL video game. But that was one of the better defensive performances we have seen from the Oilers in a very long time. And the fact that it's coming without Ekholm, it was a complete team effort, what they were able to do against a really good Vegas Golden Knights team. Not a Golden Knights team that we are used to from years past or anything like that, but from a very, very good Vegas Golden Knights team. To be able to shut them down and play that defensive style was great. It's certainly not a strength of theirs, but a great job in being able to do that. And then the chances start to open up, and you could see that that was the style of game that they were more comfortable in, right? Like we talked about in the UFC breakdown from earlier today, if you watch everything, the Jack Della Maddalena against Bilal Muhammad fight, where both guys fought at the other style and did pretty well, but then one did a little bit better at keeping it their own style. And that's kind of what this game was, where the Oilers, I thought, did really well in the defensive battle that the Vegas Golden Knights kind of dragged them into in this game. But then also when it came down to the flying around, like Vegas did pretty good in that part, but Edmonton was just so much better when it came to creating all those opportunities and stuff like that. So when this game finally opens up in the third period, you can really see where this team starts to shine, and they would start to take over, and then eventually they are able to break their way through. And so being able to play that fast-paced, high-scoring style while also being able to play the playoff style of hockey that everyone talks about, it's really impressive. And again, I didn't see this coming. It is such a dramatic turnaround from where they were at the end of the Kings series, not at the end of the Kings series, at the beginning of the Kings series, where they're down 2-0. They made that comeback in game 1, but aside from that, like, they got dummied in that game, to now being able to switch it on and be this complete hockey team is really impressive. And the other aspect of this that I think has to give Oilers fans a lot of confidence is whatever was bothering Stuart Skinner appears to have been figured out. Not that he stole them this game or anything of the sort, but he was everything they needed him to be. It is back-to-back shutouts to close out a playoff series, which I don't think anybody saw coming. So there is a lot that I think that Oilers fans can be excited about. But this is feeling a little bit like last season, where they had to pull Skinner. That was the second round too, wasn't it? I guess this one was kind of part of the first, but they pull Skinner. He has to come back in for whatever reason, and now he has got back into his groove, and he has figured it out. It really does seem like that this team is in a very good, and obviously they're in a good spot. They're one of the final four. They are 8 wins away from the Stanley Cup. So obviously they are in a very, very good spot right now. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and watching today. We'll get to the Vegas aspect of this in just a sec, but do want to remind you, if you check the link wherever you are consuming this, whether it's podcast form or on YouTube, there is a tip button now. If you want to support what we were doing here and support a small creator on Couch Potato Diary, that would be greatly appreciated. If you have the means. If you don't, just a subscription on podcast form or on YouTube, sorry, or a like or a review. All of that means the world to me. So lots of questions about the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, this team is always aggressive when it comes to roster construction, and I would assume they are going to be again this year. They have a decent amount of cap space to make a bit of a push, and they need some scoring if they want to hang here in the Pacific. I think the Kings are going to probably be aggressive as well. I think the Flames are obviously on the come up, and depending on the reports that you believe, are going to be aggressive. And obviously the Oilers are here to stay. So there is a lot that I think you have to look at from a Vegas standpoint. And we're going to do off-season previews. I thought it was going to be this week. It might move to next week now, but we're going to be doing off-season previews for some of these teams. And when you're looking at it, goal scoring is the thing. Like, this team defensively is good. Adin Hill is, I don't know, like, he is not upper echelon, but he is good. He won him a Stanley Cup and is good enough that it is not a problem you have to solve right now. So if they can go out, get some scoring help for Eichel, I think they need some high-end scoring, and I do think a little bit more in the depth would help out as well. But this is a team that obviously is going to be aggressive. They are going to be creative, and I think they are licking their chops at the situations that are happening in Canada, quite frankly. When you are looking at what is going on with Mitch Marner, when you are looking at what is going on with Brock Besser, you can really see how this whole offseason could take shape in a Vegas Golden Knights sort of a way. So definitely a team that you need to watch out for when it comes to the offseason. And we'll be looking at the offseason. Like I said, thought it might be this week, but it'll be next week. Let's pivot now and move to the world of baseball, as the Toronto Blue Jays are hanging around right now, constantly around the 500 mark. So let's look to give them some help. It's never too early to look at trades. Let's go through some of the top trade targets that I think the Blue Jays should be looking at, as we are a couple months away still from the baseball trade deadline. The Toronto Blue Jays are hanging around in baseball's, I guess, playoff race. It's a little too early to be calling it that, but hanging around the 500 mark. Some parts of their game are better than you'd expect, and some parts aren't. So, never too early to talk trades. Here are a bunch of Blue Jays trade targets, and going through, this basically turned into good veterans on bad teams. But there are a couple ones, and not to do the whole BuzzFeed thing, but we're ending with a flourish on this one. I'll just say that. This is one you're going to want to stick to the end for. So we'll begin with the Miami Marlins, Sandy Alcantara. I'm greedy. The Blue Jays, they need more pitching, I think. So why not go get the best pitcher available? And I think that is clearly Sandy Alcantara. And he is one of the best pitchers in baseball and has been for a little bit now. And so that is the big type of blockbuster move that you make to really solidify things. And like, I think when people think of the Blue Jays pitching needs, and certainly it comes up here as we go along, it's a little bit more on the depth department so that you're not using a Jose Urena or anything like that in key games down the stretch. But, I mean, if you're going to be adding a pitcher anyway, why not make it be the best one? I'm recording this after the Blue Jays lost their series to the Tampa Bay Rays on Thursday afternoon, and Kevin Gausman wasn't overly sharp. And they've had a little bit of that this year, right? Like, Gausman hasn't been perfect. Barrios has had a couple of outings that have been up and down. Bassett can be a little all over the place at times. All of them have, like, very high level potential, and when everyone is clicking, this can still be one of the best rotations in baseball, but there is a little bit more inconsistency with the rotation this year, and so I think going out and adding a Cy Young caliber pitcher, look, that's never going to hurt. And so if you want to really be taking home run swings, that's a pretty good one to go with. If you want to go the cheap depth route, may I suggest a name that's a little bit more familiar, and that would be Cal Quantrill. The very cheap starting pitching depth option and Nepo baby extraordinaire for a former Blue Jay, Paul Quantrill. This was someone who the Blue Jays, when they signed Max Scherzer, it kind of took them out of the Cal Quantrill market because Cal would be looking for something that would be more than a sixth starter that was potentially in AAA. But now, by way of trade, you can make this work a little bit better. And again, it is a solid depth option, someone who could maybe go long out of a bullpen, but just give you some quality major league innings if and when there are some injuries in the starting rotation. Also with Miami, Calvin Faulkner is 29 years old, a ton of team control at $735,000 this year. That might bring the acquisition cost up a little bit. All of those things might bring up the acquisition cost a little bit, but right now he's closing for Miami, and the Marlins are a bit of a tire fire. The Blue Jays do need help in the bullpen. Hoffman has been fantastic, but we're getting into the territory where some of these numbers are starting to normalize a little bit, and that means he's getting hit. And it's a lot of relying on him and Jimmy Garcia. If you can get another high-level bullpen arm out there that really does ease the load of everything, and we talked about it before, in the offseason, that it felt like they needed one more big arm to just kind of let everyone slot into place there. Longtime consumers of my content are going to roll their eyes at this because I've been pounding the table for this one for years. A couple of years, anyway. But Luis Robert from the Chicago White Sox. I said it last year. I'm saying it this year. It makes too much sense for the Blue Jays. Toronto needs an outfielder. He's an outfielder. Toronto needs a strong bat. He's a strong bat. He would be such a major addition to this team. And so again, a couple of these are, let's nibble around the edges. Let's see how we can figure this out. This one is a, let's go and make a real push at this. That this team is in contending status, let's push them over the edge. Like, remember back in 2015 when the Blue Jays, we all remember the home run and the bat flip and all of that. But the Blue Jays, when they started making those big trades, they were 40-41, I believe. And then late at night, just one last scroll through Twitter, and you see Ken Rosenthal, the Blue Jays get Tulo, or Tulo to the Jays, or whatever that was. It wasn't like this team was like, oh, they're a game out of first place in the East, and now they're making a move. It's Jose Reyes can't field his position anymore, so let's go out and really be aggressive and make this move. And they got him, they got David Price, Matt, a couple other moves, Ben Revere and all that, but it really did kind of lift this whole team up. And so I think this could be that type of a move. And I'm not even saying like replace Varsho in center field. Obviously, he has played a very good defensive center field, and he's added some pop off of the bench. But have Robert shift over to left, and now you have an outfield of Robert, Varsho, and Springer or Santander, and then you can cycle through DHs that way and all of that. If you want a little bit more speed in the outfield late in games, Straw can come in as a defensive replacement, as can Lucas. So I think it really solidifies this team. You would have a top of the order with Bichette, Vladdy, and then you can go Robert, and then Santander, and then Springer, and then Kirk, and then Varsho. It makes the lineup so much more dangerous. And so I think it makes so much sense for the Blue Jays to go after that one. Again, back in the starting pitching rotation depth area, Tyler Anderson of the Los Angeles Angels. He's a pending UFA at $13 million. Really solid middle of the rotation guy that can help out the starting pitching depth. So again, this one is not a let's go out and add an ace. This is a let's chew up some high quality innings and just make it so that we are constantly throwing out major league caliber starting pitching on a nightly basis. Another one from the Angels is Taylor Ward. Not an average guy, but a ton of pop in the bat at $7.3 million, 1 year arbitration needed. He is some much needed pop. And now I prepped this before the Jays hit the hell out of the baseball against the Mariners and continued to do so against the Tampa Bay Rays, but I still think that for this offense to produce at this way in a sustainable fashion, Taylor Ward would be a much needed acquisition to, whether it's pop off of the bench or as a semi-regular, I would say. Just adding a little bit more power to the lineup and a little bit more power to the bench would be a big thing for him, and so adding that would certainly help. Jorge Soler is another one, $13 million the next 2 years. Some big game experience, major pop in that bat still. It does probably require you to put someone in the field that you're not overly thrilled with on a nightly basis, whether it be him or Santander. But again, when you acquire him, you still have a Straw and a Lucas on the bench that you can bring in defensive situations late in ball games and stuff like that. And I think it's obvious going through this what I think the Blue Jays need is, and that is some pop in this lineup. I like the approach they've had with Ernie Clement and Lucas and all those guys at the bottom of the order with a lot of hit and run. And it does seem like Barger has at least a little bit of sustainable pop in that bat. But I still think that for this team to actually be a real contender, that there needs to be a little bit more of a power dynamic to this offense that you can rely on. Moving out to Washington, Kyle Finnegan, closer for the Nationals. He's a pending UFA. That would be a really strong rental to add to the bullpen. And again, bring in someone who you can throw out in high leverage situations so that it is not just Jimmy Garcia and Jeff Hoffman trying to get 9 outs a night and hoping that Chad Green can figure it out and hoping that Yariel Rodriguez has figured it out. These are some guys that you can add some real leverage or add some experience in leverage situations for the Blue Jays. Also, Josh Bell would be a solid rental bat. He's off to a very slow start this season. He would be a bit of a platoon off the bench sort of a guy, but I think certainly that is a move that I think could benefit the Toronto Blue Jays and just adding a little bit more pop off of that bench. Continuing on looking at the trade targets for the Blue Jays, do want to remind you that if you need the energy to get through this video or whatever you're doing, swiftenergy.gg is the place to go. Use the code PKPrimetime. They got a lot of great drinks there to help out with the energy, and it'll get you 25% off. Okay, let's continue on now. We'll go to the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are just an absolute tire fire. Andrew Heaney. Look, the Pirates have already fired their manager. Heaney is a perfect rental guy, off to a really strong start this year on a bad baseball team, and again, could just be an innings eater, give you some quality innings in that starting rotation. He's had some high-level experience and has pitched in some important games for his career. So I think that this is a guy that would be a real benefit. If you are convinced that you still have a good top of the rotation and you just need basically someone to fill what you thought Scherzer was going to be this season, I think he is a strong one there. A nice familiar name out of the bullpen, Ryan Borucki. I think the Blue Jays need a little bit of help on the left side in the bullpen, and he's off to a good start this year. He's making less than $2 million. I think that you could kind of package this one together pretty well when if you want to do Heaney and, hey, can you guys throw in a Borucki as well? And now you've strengthened that bullpen. Little is no longer the only left-handed arm that you have out there, and he is someone who has kind of worked out this kind of second act of his career quite effectively, pitching as a left-hander in the Pittsburgh bullpen. Staying in the Central, Freddie Peralta, one of the best pitchers in the league right now at under $10 million a year. He is a really great pitcher, and this one is fully of the belief that the Brewers will fall off at some point, or that maybe not even fall off, but just that the Cubs are going to keep pulling ahead in the Central, and the absolute just sprint in the National League West, which is basically powered by everyone kicking the tar out of the Rockies, who come up in a second. I think that Milwaukee, even if they don't fully fall off, I just think they fall further and further behind in this race. And so I think adding one of the best pitchers in baseball would be a gigantic help. These two teams have come together for deals before, and I think it would be really beneficial to the Blue Jays. Obviously, that this is another one in the Alcantara realm of, if you're going to be adding starting pitching anyway, why not go for the best? I don't think it would be a cheap add. bad, but I think it would be a very effective one. And if we want to just keep piling it on, let's go with the Milwaukee Brewers closer right now in Trevor McGill, off to an excellent start this season. I think they're going to be selling some pieces off, and while this one, again, maybe it's a couple more pieces than you would want because he is a closer, it is those high leverage innings, and it is taking that pressure off of the big time arms that you have out in that bullpen. We're going, apparently, if we're looking for left-handed help in the bullpen, we're only looking towards former Blue Jays, as Steven Matz is another one. Another lefty arm could be beneficial to the Blue Jays with the St. Louis Cardinals, who, again, I think just don't have the horses to keep up with the Cubs and everyone else in that National League wildcard race. So I think they are probably going to recognize that they need to go in a bit of a different direction, and I think adding an asset or two for a Steven Matz would help them and would really help out the Blue Jays. I think it would give you a left-handed arm that you would be comfortable with in high-leverage situations, one that I don't think they're really using him for much distance now, but he has been a starter in the past, so you could go an inning or two with him, and he with that starter experience, he is comfortable pitching against both lefties and righties, but you can still have that strong left-handed reliever option there in a Steven Matz. Talked about the Colorado Rockies. There is but one redeeming quality on that team, and it is Ryan McMahon. Off to a bit of a slower start this year, but who isn't on the Rockies? He is a really good third base option, and one that I think could really help out as kind of that complementary bat sort of a feel. Now, the one thing, Barger playing a little bit better right now at third base, and that being said, McMahon's an all-star, and I don't even think he's an all-star in the way that everyone gets all-stars. Like, this is a high-quality player that you would be trying to acquire, and so you make that work. If it's Barger has to go play left field for a while now, Barger has to go play left field for a while now. I don't think this would be one where, okay, now you have this dominant offense that we'd be talking about if they added a Soler or if they added a Robert, for example, or the next option we'll be talking about. But I do think that it is a very, very talented hitter, a very talented baseball player, and just raises the floor of what this team could be. So would he be batting second every night? Maybe not. But if you have him batting fifth after Springer, or even sixth after Alejandro Kirk, it just stretches the lineup out and just adds, quite frankly, this feels really dismissive because the team is playing better. And a lot of the guys who I was critical of have been stepping up, and they have been using them in ways that have been really beneficial to the team. But there are some days where you see it, and especially on the nights where Varsho is sitting, it looks like a AAA lineup out there. And so this would just, again, it feels so dismissive, but this would just add another Major League Baseball player into the lineup. And the last one here, it is going to be on every trade targets, everything for every team. It's Rafael Devers. Things seem a little rocky with him and the Red Sox right now. I think that this is a player that still has it in him to be one of the best players in the sport. I think that he feels wronged by what has happened out in Boston. And so I think if you were to get him, you are getting an incredibly motivated player, and one that I think would be a game changer, potential game changer for this team. And so it is for all of those reasons that I don't think Boston's trading him in division at all. But it'd be nice. And we're talking about trade targets. That is one. I mean, look. Yeah, if they could swing one for Ohtani, that would be great. But I think this is one that legitimately could be on the move, and I think the Blue Jays should be in on, and would be, like, to be perfectly honest, I think would be well within their rights to kind of quote-unquote overpay on as well. So I think that is one that I would really love for them to try to acquire. So those are some going from the high-level all-star bin to the let's just add a little bit here. But those are some of the names that I think the Blue Jays should be targeting as we kind of ramp things up in towards summer and then the trade deadline and everything like that. All right, that's going to do it for the show today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Again, we are presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for that great Calgary swag. Also, as mentioned before, check out Swift Energy for all of your help getting through games or streams or whatever, just long baseball games. Head to swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for that 25% off. That's going to do it for this one today. If you are listening, make sure you subscribe and leave a review. If you're watching, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and share the video with some of your friends. And let's keep this conversation going over on social media. Going to be back with a little bit more as the week goes on here. Going to be looking at a few more combat sports related things and a little bit more in the world of baseball as the week rolls on. So thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to all of you later.